All right. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to see you all. This is so fantastic. And super last minute, Linda approached me a few days ago asking if I would fill the spot, and I happened to be available. I had no idea what I was going to talk about. And then the influence of the full moon in Scorpio, which we just had, it clicked on me. It clicked for me yesterday, I think it was. Or a couple of days ago when I said, "Oh, brilliant! Of course, I'm. This is what I'm going to talk about," because I feel this full moon has brought up so much of the Scorpionic and Plutonian energy, especially because Mars was conjuncting Pluto just not too long ago, which both of them are the rulers of Scorpio. So we've been feeling the Scorpionic Plutonian energy, which brings about so much transformation and so much evolution. And I know the last couple of weeks have been, let's say, less than the easiest ones. I posted something on Facebook and I was just baffled by the amount of responses that I received of how many people were going through it. And then I posted another thing, kind of just shedding some light on what's actually happening for us individually and collectively, the amount of transformation and evolution that is actually taking place, and the evolutionary forces that are sweeping over us and within us to move us into a new place. This is the death and rebirth process, which I'm assuming there's a lot of Scorpio viewers and Scorpio the people that are present right now, which can definitely relate to that and understand on a deeper level the nature of Scorpio and Pluto and the kind of lessons that they bring about. And I'm going to share my chart as well. So I've got the volunteers, and I really want to share my chart because there's tremendous amount of Scorpio there. So I love sharing my chart and my own story. And okay, all three volunteers are here. Perfect. So what I really want to talk about today is, and first I want to really give gratitude for Jeffrey Wolf Green, Evolutionary Astrology, that really brought up the idea and the concept and the understanding of Pluto in our own individual chart, in our birth chart, and the Pluto Polarity point and the evolution of the soul. And that is such a deeper, it brings astrology, it gives astrology such a deeper meaning and gives our own individual storyline such a deeper meaning and a deeper understanding of ourselves on a soul level, and how Pluto does represent that unconscious layer of ourselves, the soul, the unknown. And so I definitely want to acknowledge him and the work that he brought into astrology, and the system that he has brought into astrology is so valuable. So what I'll be speaking about today is Pluto in the chart itself. That's how I see it, how I conduct my readings, that it's not only, okay, we look at the Pluto polarity point to see the evolution of the soul, what the soul really wants to experience and embody and master in this lifetime. It's also important to see where Pluto is in the chart. And I see that area of life is an area, the placement of Pluto is the area where we go through the most amount of transformation in this lifetime. It's an area of life where we constantly go through periods of death and rebirth. It's an area of life where we are called to really master. And it also is the area where we can face the most amount of shadows, because Pluto is definitely the underneath the surface, the ruler of the underworld, where all the, I like to call it the creepy crawlers sometimes, are hanging out. And this can be a challenging area of life. Same thing applies to the house that is ruled by Scorpio. And then, of course, depending on what else is going on in the chart and the rulers of those houses. So, of course, there's a lot of moving parts. But to keep it as simple as possible, I'm going to be talking about, and in the charts show the areas of life where Pluto and Scorpio are dominant. How do we face the most amount of shadows in those areas of life? And this is the beautiful thing, is that what we consider to be our shadows, or a lot of people in the self-development work call it, oh, I got to work on my shit. And it's like taking that shadow and turning it into light, or taking that shit and turning it into gold, which is the power of Pluto. And it is the power of Scorpio, which is the alchemist. And once we really know, that's the first step, to just know, wow, okay, I've got some shadows in this area. Like, we have to bring it into the conscious level. Then we have the power to transform. That's the power of Scorpio, the power of transformation, the power of transmutation. That is the power of our own evolution. And what I see is that, okay, we can focus on the Pluto polarity point, which of course is valuable and necessary. However, I feel that in order for us to move towards the Pluto polarity point, which is less familiar, it's like the North Node. It's not something that is comfortable for us. It's something that we are evolving towards. In order to do that more fully and completely, we first must focus on that area of life where Pluto is, where Scorpio is. Focus on that, acknowledge the shadows, embrace the shadows, and then start working towards transforming those shadows. Oh, okay. No, I'm not wearing bills. Okay. Tell me if this is better. I think the thing was just hitting my necklace. So this is probably better. I'll just cut okay, better. Thank you, Linda. So to move to the Pluto polarity point, it's easier to move towards the Pluto polarity point once we really, truly face, so to speak, those shadows and learn how to transform them. Then the movement towards the Pluto polarity point becomes more of an easy, not easy maybe, but easeful journey. So, the areas where we have Pluto and Scorpio can be areas where there can be some obsessions or wanting to control, but definitely some obsessive compulsive behaviors. And now this is the key for a deeper understanding of what is the motivation in life for us. And that's the beautiful dance between Pluto and Mars, which, Mars was the first ruler of Scorpio. And that was before Pluto was discovered, before human consciousness discovered that there's something deeper than just the ego. There's something underneath the surface. So we make our choices, we take actions, we've got drives in life, we've got motivation, we feel desires, but where does those desires come from? And that's the beautiful thing about evolutionary astrology, understanding that Mars is just, in a sense, like the servant of Pluto. Whatever Pluto says, Mars is going to do. So we can feel motivated towards something. We can feel, okay, I have those desires and I'm just going to act on it, because that is the nature and the function of Mars. I want, I act, I feel something, I'm going to move towards it, which can be a beautiful thing. However, when there are shadows underneath the surface, Pluto, and we don't necessarily know that this is the motivation, we can keep bumping into the same walls over and over again, or keep feeling the same desires and move towards those desires without really understanding that it's coming from a deeper place. And what I see with the function of Mars is Mars does represent the ego desires. And okay, nothing wrong with that, but we definitely want to merge, which is another quality of Scorpio, the merging. We want to merge the ego with the soul so they don't work separately. The soul is actually urging us to do one thing, but the ego is moving in a different direction. And that's when we can feel very confused in life, or just repeating the same cycles over and over again that aren't necessarily so beneficial for us. And that's where the function of Mars, when it's not fully connected to Pluto and what's underneath the surface, can be very destructive. And Mars, as the ruler of Aries and fire, is very much has that capacity and has that potential to be destructive, to be warlike, impulsive, and not in a healthy way. Again, very destructive. However, when Mars does become more of a loving servant to Pluto, to the soul, when the ego matches with what the soul, what's the deeper aspect of us that is beyond just the ego, when those two come together, then our actions and our desires, Mars function, moves from being destructive to a very beneficial way of moving about one life. And Mars also being the masculine function in our chart and the kind of fire of creation, when we align Mars and Pluto, when we understand what's underneath the surface, what's the shadows that we can work with, and turn those shadows into light and turn that shit, so to speak, into gold, we definitely become a conscious creator of our own lives. And to me, that's the healthiest function of Mars that we can experience in our own chart. And that kind of masculine energy that helps us create in the way that is directed from a deeper place within ourselves. And Pluto is desires, Mars is desires. The question is, what are those desires? Where are those desires come from? If I'm still desiring from an unconscious place, from some shadows that I'm not aware of, maybe shadows that I'm denying or whatnot, there's not necessarily a beneficial actions that we take. But when we acknowledge the shadows, when we see that this is what we're working on with, and we start, like I said, going with that, going about those shadows in a very alchemical way, and actually even getting excited about it, then so much power comes into our own creative life. And that is Pluto. Pluto can move from shadow to power. And that's why I always tell people, your shadows, your fears, whatever you classify as shadows, those are actually your greatest assets. Once we stop disowning them and stop being the victim of them, but actually, again, that's when we can utilize Mars and work with it and turning them into the beautiful gifts that they are. So I'm going to, like I said, share my chart and go through the volunteers. I believe we have enough time for all three. And I want to say this to the volunteers. We are going to touch on some personal stuff, when we talk about Pluto, Scorpio, shadows, what's underneath the surface. And this is not like a private reading just between you and I. So if there's some things that you just don't want to go and talk about, please let me know. But this is definitely a kind of a revealing, talking about our shit kind of a thing. So, yeah. So let me, I'll start sharing my screen. All right. Alrighty. So, this is the topic, Scorpio-Pluto archetype, the alchemical power in your own birth chart. So, Let me start with my chart. This is me right here, revealing my soul. And as you can see, like all this Scorpio going on over here, what's really one of the interesting things about my chart is, and it's just depending on what kind of house system you choose, but this is a porphyry house system. And according to this house system, Scorpio doesn't rule any of my houses, which is an interesting thing, having so much Scorpio in the fourth house. But my fourth house is traditionally speaking, is ruled by Libra. And then my fifth house is ruled by Sagittarius. So it's, there's an interesting aspect here, just as a side note, just to my own identity, which is definitely something I experience in my life, having Scorpio kind of in between and not really ruling any house. But I'll start with Pluto and share a little bit about my journey and the placement of Pluto in my chart. So Pluto in the third house, which the next chart that I'm gonna talk about, which is Amanda, we have some similarities. But Pluto in the third house is, and definitely from my own life, is, the mind. This is something that I'm constantly, and especially when I started diving and learning more about spirituality and metaphysics and all that stuff and meditation. Now looking back, I understand just how crucial that moment was in my life when I got exposed to all of that. Pluto in the third house can very much, and from my own life, I can say it's a very strong mind. And when there's unawareness of just how strong the mind is, it's very destructive. And Pluto in the third house with the kind of obsessive, compulsive thinking patterns. And the fact that I have all the Scorpio in the fourth house, even though my fourth house is not ruled by Scorpio, because it is my life, I can say that that apply the Scorpionic energy, the obsessive, compulsive energy when it comes to just my own emotional life and emotions. Both are very strong. I know that for a big portion of my life, lived in a very subjective reality kind of existence, that everybody is experiencing the same thing that I do. And really, it's not until my mid-20s, perhaps, that I had this epiphany, like, oh my God, not everybody sees the world the way I do. But yeah, the emotional world is so deep and so strong, and I need to constantly manage that in a way. And when I say manage, not to control it, but not let that control me. Because for a big portion of my life, I did let my emotional world control me. And going back to Pluto in the third house, like I said, a very obsessive compulsive mind, very strong mind. A mind that it can be attached to certain things and not let go. But more than anything else is the obsessive way of thinking. Now, when I realized that, okay, I've got such a powerful mind, well, I can use that power to actually create in the way that I can create, instead of using that powerful mind as in a destructive way. And now having Mars in Capricorn in the sixth house also, it's the compulsive worrying, or being stressed, or just needing things to be so perfect. And because of all this fourth house and Scorpio energy that I have, all of that was definitely directed towards myself more than anything else. And perfecting myself in a way that definitely moved me in some destructive behaviors. Then when I realized that, and again, the shadows that I was working with, seeing the Pluto polarity point as the ninth house is to broaden my perspective. And especially when it comes to myself and who I am, having the ninth house ruled by Aries is having a broader perspective on myself, like to really come out of the thinking mind and the left brain, which can be very dominant and strong, and move more towards the right brain, ninth house, seeing myself from a broader perspective, and just broaden my horizons and listen more to my intuition rather than my thoughts. And how do I connect to my intuition? There's a lot of physical aspects here in my chart. I'm going to wait with that because Amanda has some similarities, like I said. But what I do want to say about this is how to utilize Mars in a way that helps this transformation. How to use Mars in a way that is beneficial rather than destructive. What I had found is, the physical aspect and really connecting with my body and being physical and moving my body with having Mars in the sixth house and so driven to stay healthy and helping people with being healthy. That's essential for me to really keep me out of my mind in a good way, to not just by connecting to my body, by moving my body. Of course, it's important for everybody to have physical movement. I feel, depending on what kind of elements are working in the chart, for some it's essential. It's like you got to do this every day or as frequently as possible. It's like breathing. The connection to the body through movement, through being physical, is a very essential tool to ease some of the grip, the powerful grip of the mind. And now by transforming the mind, the linear mind in that way, it has become more of a easeful journey, like I said, towards the ninth house, to really listening to my intuition, learning about my intuition, broadening my perspectives, really exploring other philosophies or truths, instead of just like, okay, this is the only way kind of a thing. And another thing with Pluto in the third house, at least for me, I'll speak on my chart, and it's communication. And this is something that I'm constantly needing to work on. How do I communicate what I really feel and what I really know? And I feel a lot because of all this Scorpio energy. It's not always easy to communicate that in words. And this is still a work in progress for me of how do I express myself beyond just words. And that's actually a way that I really enjoy expressing myself, if it's through singing or through moving, in a less linear way. But even when it comes to communication through words, verbal communication, it's something that I'm constantly transforming. Even the fact that my first language was Hebrew, and I moved to the States 15 years ago, and all of a sudden I needed to start expressing myself in English. And what's funny now is it's really hard for me to express myself in Hebrew. The whole language thing, it's something I feel is very dominant for me in my life. Even the language of astrology, when I got exposed to astrology and realized like, oh my God, this is just a translation of a certain language. And if I speak to somebody that doesn't understand the language, how do I communicate to them what I see in a way that they can understand? And that's what language is. If it's not a regular language, what we consider to be language, but the exchange of information, the translation of information can come from so many different directions. And so astrology was definitely, and still, it's a fun challenge to have. And when I do interact with people and clients that don't know any astrology, it's like, okay, how do I conceive this message to them, convey this message to them in a way that is applicable and understandable. And I have a feeling that this is something that will obviously continue in my life. Just how do I communicate my message? How do I express it? And many periods of death and rebirth in my own way of thinking, in my own way of expressing myself and communicating. That's definitely a theme for me. And the more I learn how to master that, the more I'm able to, the ninth house as well, there's this teacher aspect of me being a student for many lifetimes. And it's definitely a life for me here where I am in a teacher position, and I've put myself in a teacher position for in many ways, and will continue to do that. But in order for me to have a very powerful and effective way of teaching, it's the constant mastering and perfecting and evolving my way of communicating and expressing, and even the way I think and perceive my reality. So this is a little bit about my chart, and I want to move to Amanda right now. And I guess, Amanda, you can unmute yourself. And before I go into what I see and some of the notes that I've taken already, if you have any questions before we go into your chart.
I'm interested in what you're talking about in terms of Mars, because I think my Mars in Virgo retrograde in the first house is probably my least understood part of my chart for myself.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, no, I'm just curious about your take on it.
Okay, fantastic. So, yeah, like I said, Amanda has a third house Pluto, just like I do, and she's in the Libra generation as well, Pluto and Libra, which, by the way, I believe all my volunteers, myself and all the volunteers are all Pluto and Libra generation, which is definitely a generation working on balance and equality and how to achieve that in our own lives. And then on a bigger level, on a global stage, is how to bring about harmony and justice into this world. Just a side note. But yeah, Pluto in the third house, like I said, when I discussed my chart, it's the transformation of the mind. The biggest transformation is just how do I transform my thoughts, the way of thinking. And with you, Amanda, this is the Mars in Virgo in the first house, and that's another similarity that you and I have with our charts. My Mars is in the sixth house, so there's a correlation there with Virgo in the sixth house. So I can relate to that, where that Mars in Virgo in the first house, when Pluto is in the third, you can have very destructive thoughts about yourself. Mars in the first house can feel like the self-criticism, a constant need to perfect yourself. But then it can, that need to perfect yourself, which that drive can be a beautiful thing. But when that drive comes through as criticizing yourself or judging yourself, or, always finding the faults about yourself, that can become destructive. Does that resonate?
It does, although that's been a pretty recent thing in my life. I think that my self-esteem has been pretty high most of my life. And when I've had like self-critical thoughts, my ability to just kind of be like, hey, shut up, has been pretty good. In the past 2 years or so, that's shifted a little bit. I think starting with Jupiter coming through all of those planets when it was in Virgo, it kind of unlocked it. But there's definitely a really strong imposter syndrome that I have to push through all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I just like I discussed about my chart, Mars being in an earth sign. So mine is in Capricorn, yours is in Virgo, but regardless, people with Mars in earth signs, it's really important and essential to be physical. And for you, especially, Mars is in the first house. To get into the body, to move the body, to feel healthy in your body. So is that something that you have experienced in your life, to just the difficulty or the challenge to feel healthy in your body?
Again, that's something that's come up more in the past couple of years. I kind of ebb and flow in and out of periods where I'm like super body health focused, and then I'm not for a little while. But in the past year, I had a long story short, a sudden ovarian cancer diagnosis and a big old surgery that happened when Chiron was on that 8th house Venus. And that has definitely put the focus a lot more on body and health and wellness. Although I will say that, like, with my client work and stuff, one of my biggest focuses is on getting into the body in terms of like what's going on in body and what is body feeling, as kind of like the antidote to people who are up in their heads, as I was for the first part of my life.
Right. So this is where we have very similar themes for you. Like you said, the first part of your house, as we know, we go through evolution. So as Jeffrey Wolf Green also conveyed in his teachings, which I so appreciate because it's so true. You can look at a chart and just say, okay, black and white, this is what the person is. And it really depends on their own evolutionary stage, right? So your chart in somebody else's life could be different. That's still in their late 30s or into their 40s. They're still just like obsessive with their thoughts and whatnot. So you've obviously done a lot of work already, and you're in a place where you've acknowledged those, the shadowy aspect of yourself, of being in your head and the compulsive thinking, and you moving towards your Pluto polarity point, which is, again, broadening the perspective, being more intuitive. And I feel for you that what could be a very essential piece in improving and developing more of your intuition even, and your ability to teach, because you do work with clients and you're already a teacher, is connecting with your body and getting to a place of health that is more than what you've ever imagined to be. And that's another thing of the 9th house. Like, you can limit yourself. Pluto in the 3rd house can be just limiting what I believe is possible. And when it comes to your health, when it comes to your vitality, when it comes to your levels of energy, the way you look, even Mars in the 1st house is the appearance as well. And it's like 9th house, like you just believe in yourself and believe in the infinite possibilities when it comes to your health and how you can feel in your body. You may believe or think, okay, this is great. I feel great. Let me stop here. Where there's actually, do you realize just how more amazing you can feel in your body? What else can I try and search? That's the search for the truth in the 9th house. For you, it does go back to that physical aspect of what else can I try and broaden my horizons when it comes to my own vitality and health in my own body. Does that land?
Yeah, absolutely. It makes a lot. I think one thing that kind of comes to mind is I'm thinking about, all like the Uranus square the nose and the other Scorpio that's going on there. And when I was going through a really scorpionic time a couple of years ago, I had a healer like lead me through a guided visualization. And he said, now just lean into the earth, like lean into Mother Earth, let her support you. And my whole system just went, like, it's not safe here. It's not safe in the body. It's not safe in the physical plane. And so there are really deep fears of that.
Yeah. I can definitely, I definitely saw the Uranus in Scorpio as a skipped step for you. And you've got your moon in Scorpio too, which that's the ruler of the 4th house, not your 4th house because it's ruled by Scorpio, but in general, the moon is associated with the 4th house. Your moon is in Scorpio as well. So there's definitely some deeper, perhaps fears and some emotional, even trauma connected to the body. And not fully feeling comfortable in your body and actually feeling the sensations in your body. Right. So that's why I said it's so essential for you to connect to your body on a daily basis and to really find the ways that you can move your body in a way that suits you And that may change, you know, what suits you today and let's say for years can all of a sudden stop. And that's the constant search for you. Okay, how do I want to move my body now? What really feels good in my body? What feels like I can connect with my body through this way of movement? What brings me the most amount of joy and vitality on a physical level and on an emotional level as well, because those two are connected. When we feel satisfied emotionally, which for you, the moon in Scorpio, there's an emotional hunger. And again, that's another thing that we share in our chart, Amanda, because all that Scorpio energy that I have in the fourth house has a very moon kind of taste to it. So the emotional hunger is very strong, and that can be a shadowy thing as well. And we can soothe that emotional hunger through food. It can be through things that make us feel comfortable, but food is a big thing that can bring comfort. And so, you know, it's just learning how to work with that quote unquote shadow of needing that emotional hunger, and how can I fulfill that emotional hunger in a more beneficial way, like I said, in a productive way. And with Mars and Virgo is, okay, you know, being in my body and connecting to my body, moving my body is definitely a good way, a good path to take.
Thank you.
Sure. Yes, thank you. All right. So now we have Irina. Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Irina. It's okay.
Irina. Okay, great, Irina. Thank you for being here and for volunteering.
No problem.
Do you have any specific question or questions?
Well, the question never came up, but just realizing I felt very strongly that I should be here because I'm going through a Pluto square in my chart. So it's like, it's been very interesting in the last few years. And I think the next few will be the same. So I just felt that I should be here. So I came.
Okay, great. Great, welcome. Thank you for being here. And you actually coming out of the Pluto square, it's starting to ease off a little bit, which is probably one of the reasons why you're here, because once the square starts to soften, or so to speak, it's kind of passing.
And we are still alive.
Yeah, you're still alive. So congratulations. But that's when we start getting the realizations and revelations. Once the square, the opposition, the conjunction, whatever is happening, when that starts to ease off, that's when the gold, so to speak, starts to come in. And especially with Pluto squaring Pluto. And what I see in your chart, and it's so connected to the Pluto square that you're coming out of. You've got Pluto in the second house, but I mean, you've got the stellium here and moon connected to Pluto. So there is a scorpionic flavor to all of this as well. And the emotional hunger that I was referring to with Amanda in my own chart, it's really about your true desires. I mean, it's so much about your true desires. And what we can see here in Pluto in the second house, and again, you just tell me where you're at in your life, but how would I interpret this is there could be an overly attachment, obsession with just, I need to feel safe and comfortable. And that can override sometimes what you truly desire. And, you know, with all this Libra energy as well, it can very much be influenced by other people. And the kind of transformation that you are here to go through throughout your life in the second house is really your self-worth and how much you value yourself. And also about learning how to feel safe and learning how to feel self-reliant. That is not necessarily dependent on other people, that you can depend on other people to fulfill all of your needs and desires in order to feel safe. Because what happens when those people disappear, or when they don't feel like complying to what it is that you want, then there's this feeling of perhaps I'm not safe. So there's this ongoing death and rebirth regarding really seeing your own self-value, your own worth, your own gifts, your own talents, and really letting go, because sometimes there can be a fear of actually, okay, I know that I have this certain gift and I have this talent, and there could be a fear of actually going for it or taking the action because it doesn't feel safe. And the Pluto polarity point in the 8th house is, there are forces beyond your control, for better and for worse, so to speak, and learning that, well, life is not necessarily a safe journey in the sense that things can happen that are beyond our control. We can try and control our environment all the time so we are safe and secure. The lesson for you is how to find that safety and security within yourself that is not dependent on other people, circumstances, the world. But no matter what happens around you, that sense of safety and security within yourself is unshakable. And again, really exploring your own true desires. You've got your Mars in Scorpio, girl. I mean, that's just so passionate.
I know.
and
I can
Venus,
laugh about it now. It wasn't fun.
Yeah, yes. It's like, and you've got Venus in Scorpio too. And our Venus is conjunct actually. So we're probably going to get along really well. But side note, Mars in Scorpio, and you're attached to Uranus as well. It's like your passion and drive in life is so strong. But again, if we, on a less healthy way of expressing that passion and that needs to really move towards your desires, can if it's always geared towards, well, I'm just going to choose whatever is safe and comfortable, there's a missing piece there. But is it really what I desire? Is it truly what I want? Like, what are my deepest passions right now? And there are those cycles of death and rebirth for you when it comes to those desires. With Mars being in Scorpio, and now that you're coming out of the Pluto squaring Pluto, I believe, especially after this full moon that we had in Scorpio, I believe that you are really coming to a place of tapping into some deep desires and how to, in your life, who do you want to be? What do you want to create? Who you are, really, that you've never realized before.
You just perfectly described the last few years of my life.
And it might change your direction in life. It might change your direction in life, which will be an opportunity for you to really be in this surrendering space. Again, that's the 8th house. Like, okay, letting go. I'm good. I feel this is truly what I desire. And there are forces like I said, there are forces beyond our control, which we can work with as well. Like, I cannot really control all the details of how this is going to come into life. But now you have the ability to trust yourself more, because you see the value of just who you are, and the value of your own desires that maybe are not, maybe haven't felt safe for you, or maybe other people influenced your direction or fulfilling your own desires.
That's it. That's perfectly it.
Yeah.
It's exactly what happened to me, actually. And just a few years ago, I actually battled with this idea in my head. I had this big fear when this journey, I guess the square started. I had this extreme intensified fear that I was going to end up living under a bridge for some reason. It was so strong. I was completely incapacitated. I couldn't do anything. And it took many months of working through that fear to actually start moving past it. And and build this sense, exactly the same emotions that you were just describing. I spent the last 3.5 years actually working on building, and they're starting to take shape now, finally, after this whole turmoil. But this fear was so strong, and I didn't even know why was it so intensified until I saw the chart and until I saw the transits, and I was like, well, that makes sense. So
Mm-hmm.
it was a relief, because it was so crazy that I was like thinking, what's going on? This is really intense. And I guess the Pluto and Scorpio energy is all over my chart. Even the polarity point is in the 8th house. Pluto is in the 2nd. The stellium is in Scorpio there, and then this big T square between Chiron and Jupiter is also connected to all that. So I was working through all those energies in the last few years. So
Yeah, it hasn't been the easiest ride for you, and you've got a lot of Libra as well, and it's very interesting. The Libra and Scorpio. I've got my Libra is my moon is in Libra as well, and so it's an interesting. Libra and Scorpios are vastly different, even though they're just next to each other. So different, and you've got a dominant Libra energy, and also the ruler of your chart, which is Mercury, is in Libra as well. So that's constant search for balance, and really finding the balance, and the balance that works for you in your life. But that can also be a very flippy floppy. Like one day I'm here, one day I'm there, and it's just like, what the heck? What do I want? It can be very much influenced by other people. And for you, with Pluto in the 2nd house with Libra, it's like the constant comparison, comparing yourself to other people, and giving your power away in that way without really knowing that that's what you do. And that's the shadowy part that we're talking about. That I'm making a safe assumption here that you've spent a lot of your life, the first portion of your life, really comparing yourself to other people. And I'm not as talented as this person. I'm not gifted as this person. Maybe I'm not as pretty as this person, and giving your power away in that way. And once you've realized that, and like, wait a second, and working on that self-worth and value, it becomes easier to move towards that Pluto polarity point of seeing the power within yourself. I mean, all of us with the Pluto in Libra, Aries is the Pluto polarity point. It's so much about the self, and your North Node is in the 1st house as well. It's like, you got to stop being dependent on other people, and just know yourself, know your own worth, know who you are on such a deep level that you can take that passion of Mars and Scorpio and move it in the direction that you really want to move it, and not being dependent on what others are going to think, say, do, and definitely having the kind of confidence, the power that Mars and Scorpio can give you, the confidence and the strength to achieve and create the things that are really true for you. So like I said, I believe that you are approaching a very significant breakthrough in your life.
this full moon really felt like that, especially this Monday was accidentally or coincidentally, I actually had a 4-day long weekend, so it was just about me this last 4 days, and it felt like some pieces are starting to click into place. I'm not sure about the final shape yet, but I feel something's happening, and it's a good feeling for once.
Yeah. I would say, right, for you right now, with all this air energy and Libra and Mercury being in Libra, it's like, don't think about the house. Don't think about the details. Just get so strong within your own sense of knowing that it's just unshakable, and really start tapping into that kind of vibration. Like, I just know, I don't know how it's going to happen, but I just know, and be very clear. This is what I want to experience in my life. Maybe I don't see the details, but I know that this is how I want to feel. Mars in Scorpio, it's like, how do I want to feel deep within me? And that's the kind of feeling that you want to sit in, and then move in the direction that brings about that feeling.
I just wrote that this morning when I woke up. I have this habit of just dumping everything on the paper before I move on with my day. obviously
Mm-hmm.
because my mind is so powerful sometimes that I just have to do that. And I wrote these words, your words, today on my paper.
Oh, of course.
This morning I wrote it. It's like, forget about everything. Forget about the thoughts. Forget about planning. Just like move along with the energy where it's taking you and just like follow where it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. I'm really happy
Go.
to hear that, Irina. It just, yeah. Yeah. You're birthing a new identity, a new self. That's awesome.
Yep. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. I believe we have time for our last volunteer, Ellen.
Hey, Noah.
Hello. Hello, Ellen.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Okay. Tell me if you have any questions.
Just real quick so I don't forget, and you don't have to answer. There may not be an answer, but my progressed sun this year is on my Pluto Polarity point. So I don't know if that is something that you look at.
Your progressed sun is approaching 18 degrees of Aries.
It's between 18 and 19 right now.
Okay. Well, yeah, this is, I mean, if we were to do a reading, I would definitely look at that and like, whoa, you coming in your own identity, because the progressed sun is just the evolutionary stage that you are in right now. It may be opposing that Pluto, that past stuff, some of the shadows and things that you've been working on. So I would say this is definitely a critical moment in your life of a new direction, of a new sense of self, and a new because it's in the 10th house as well. There's just you sharing your light in a very new way, I would say, especially in Aries. It's a new spark. It's a new, and you've got your sun in Pisces, so it could be an unfamiliar energy for you. The fire, the Aries, the maybe being more assertive in your life and going after what you want in a more confident way. The thing with how it relates to what I see in your chart in Pluto in the 5th house is that it's definitely the transformation that you go through in your life constantly is the self-expression and how do you express yourself when it comes to your own creativity. And really learning how to enjoy and play in your life. What I've seen with Pluto in the 5th house, it could be not taking life perhaps too seriously. That can be with Saturn in the 5th house and Pluto in the 5th house. Maybe that you needed to grow up really fast, or you never had a chance to really have the childhood and the kind of innocence that we need to have as children. And so you might be still carrying that sense of not enough playfulness, not enough joy, and feeling like you just need to go through the motions or just do whatever is expected of you, or just produce and appear a certain way, even if it doesn't bring joy to you.
Yeah. You nailed it.
Is that oh, okay, great.
Yeah. I was always I didn't have any specific external circumstances, but I always felt like a very serious child. Like I didn't really get some of the ways that like other children would have fun. Like it just didn't seem fun to me. Like I always wanted to be around the adults, or like, if we were going to play, I wanted to play teacher, or I wanted to be like the one in charge. I don't know. But yeah, I'm really reconnecting with like play and joy through my own. It's really helpful now through my own children as well.
Yeah, for sure. They're teachers for you to show you that. And your Pluto polarity point is the 11th house, and it's interesting because you've got Chiron in the 11th house. So that can be a signature of some kind of um, trauma, or just the feeling when you were growing up that you were different
Yes.
and looked at as like the odd one or the different one, if it's around your peers or in family home, and you learned how to shut it down. And I mean, love, you've got so much of this Pisces energy going on. I mean, I'm sure you were very connected as a child to just metaphysical stuff like angels and fairies and just the things that are not in reality. And maybe you were laughed at, or you were asking a lot of questions as a child, and you were told to, like, you are weird, you know, what are you talking about? Or, and there's this fear of, well, if I really express myself, when it comes to your creative expression, I'm afraid that I'm going to be ridiculed again. I'm afraid I'm going to be looked at as the weird one and as the odd one. You're very drawn to spirituality and arts, you know, with Pisces, and that's the Mars in Pisces that you have going on there. So when it's still in the service to a more shadowy part of you, it can be very passive in Pisces. And you can feel like, okay, this is how I really want to create and how I want to express myself. And then you're afraid to really do it. But then when you overcome that fear and you really allow yourself to express yourself and giving yourself the permission to just play with it and have fun with it and not take it so seriously, then, you know, the Mars in Pisces and all this Pisces that you have going on with the 10th house, the way I see it, Ellen, is like, man, you really need, it's like the finding God within yourself and seeing yourself in the eyes of God, which is you are just a child of God, and allow yourself to play and allow yourself to be this child that you didn't have a chance to be when you were actually a child, but that child still lives within you.
Yes, all of that. I'm actually approaching the 4th and 5th exact Pluto square Pluto. It'll be September and October, but this whole time, also just Uranus square Venus recently, just so much shedding and transforming of all of that, of letting go of like what other people think and what my mother's gonna think, and like, you know, really finding community that I feel safe and comfortable and who is, you know, supportive and encouraging. And I don't feel weird because everybody else is talking about the same things. For the first time in my life, it's been just really, really remarkable. And I don't know, I read a recent article about, it's called Unlocking the Secrets of the Wounded Psyche or something, but it talks about that magical child, you know, basically locking itself away for safekeeping in a part of our psyche. And then when we're able to let that part emerge, then the creativity and everything else flows. And I just feel like that's where I am right now, just getting back into art and writing and things that I love, but I never allowed myself to fully do or fully express.
Yeah. Well, and you have Neptune and Sagittarius squaring your nodes as well. So it's like a part of you that really finds truth and expands and grow. It has a lot to do with the non-physical, and you need to find the ways in your life where you connect to that non-physical source, if it's through art and through music, and again, just playing, just being a child, just being innocent, and just like, don't worry about anything else, you know, just allow yourself to be as joyful and as playful as possible. And it really is coming from a place of not feeling guilty about it. You know, with the Saturn and Virgo, there's a lot of guilt of like, am I doing enough? You know, it's like, no, yeah, you can play. It's okay. It's okay. You don't have to always be just responsible for everyone and everything. And meditation is very important for you. You know, really meditation and the kind of meditation that helps you to connect to that innocence, meditation that helps you to connect to that inner child and that God within yourself.
Yeah. And for me right now, instead of like a sitting meditation practice, it's become nature photography and like getting down on the ground, like taking photography of a bug, like literally being.
Hello?
Like laying on the ground. Am I there?
Yeah, you just
Can you hear me? Okay.
disappeared for a second. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's been a way recently in the past, I'd say 6 months, where I can really get in that meditative zone of through that lens of really just tuning in, and it feels like the whole world just kind of goes away. And I don't know, my camera roll is also full of just synchronicities and numbers. I'm really into numbers, and I feel like my spirit guides and angels really know how much play and joy that brings me. And so I feel like even in the last couple of weeks, it's just ridiculous. Like special numbers to me are just everywhere, like all the time, constantly. It's almost to the point where I'm like, I don't even need to take a picture because now it's just like, it's just constant.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel very supported from the non-physical right now in this reconnection to my inner child. So it's a good time right now.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for volunteering, Ellen, and all of you with the coming out of the Pluto squaring Pluto. Congratulations that you survived, and there's a big rebirth for you. So really great. Just be excited for what's coming next.
Thank you.
Great. Yes. And I know we're out of time, Linda. So if you want more information, you can check out my website, noalakshmi.com, and I will stop sharing. And we are good.
Okay. Yep, just click on stop share at the top of the screen, the red section. Yeah.
That's
okay,
right.
lovely. Thank you so much, Noa. That was incredible. Thank you. And thank you also to the volunteers, Amanda, Irina, and Ellen. Would you all please thank Noa Lakshmi, everybody?
Thank you, Noah.
Thank you.
That's great.
It was really
Thank
nice.
you. Yay. Thank you for being here.
Thanks.
Oh, Ellen, now I recognize you. I saw you.
Yes.
I met you at the, yay, awesome. Astrology conference. Great.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank
See you next
you.
time. Bye-bye.
Okay.